Hello class, this is your teacher Mr. McDougall with your next Photoshop tutorial. In this one we are going to start removing people and other subjects from photos using Photoshop's generative and content aware effects. So I will show you how to do that right now using Photoshop. So this one is called content aware. This is classwork exercises, so there are exercise files for you. Download and open all of the exercise files in Photoshop so you can follow along with me. So take a second to do that now, and we'll start here on Content Aware 01. Okay? All right, let's get started. So we'll start with this one. So for these first two, I want to show you what the content aware can do on certain types of photos. So for this one, we're actually going to use our crop tool to extend this photo just a little bit. So go over to your tools and find your crop tool. It might be hidden under the slice tool. That might have been the last one that you used. So click and hold on the slice tool and you'll see it right there for the crop tool. So for the crop tool, we're going to extend this photo out a little bit. So right now this is a good photo, but if I wanted to use it maybe as a banner on a website, it needs to be stretched out longer. So let's take this side. We're going to drag it out a little bit, maybe to about right there. And by default, it will do that. It might be on transparent for default. So when you click the check, it's going to go, okay, we cropped it, we extended it, but there's no data for it to fill in. Naturally, it doesn't know what to do. It extended it, but the photo's not that big. So what's it going to do? So I'm going to Command Z to undo that so I can show you what we're going to do next. So after you do that, Command Z, go back to your crop tool, and we're going to do it again. We're going to extend it out a little bit to the side. But before we hit the checkbox, we're going to come up here to the fill option. By default, it's on transparent, but we're going to do content aware fill. Click on this one. Click content aware fill, and then when we click this check, it's going to take a second this time. 1, 2, 3, think about it. And by the time it's done, it's going to go, ta-da, all right, it used the data it recognized from this side of the crop to fill in what it assumes the rest of the photo will look like. And on a photo like this, it's pretty easy. There's not that much going on. It's just a straight line of water, sand, and sky. So it was pretty easy for that to fill in. But let's do it again on the next one. Let's go to Content Aware 2, and we'll try that here as well. So for this one, let's extend it on both sides with your crop tool. Extend this side a little bit and extend this side a little bit so you can see both. We're going to extend it on two sides. Make sure it's on Content Aware Fill again, and we're going to hit this check. And it'll think about it, 1, 2, 3, and it will do its best again to fill in the gaps. So as you can see on this side, again, pretty easy. Little simple shape right here, sky. This part got a little confused. Once it starts adding texture and lines and stuff, that's where it starts to have trouble, which you can clearly see on this side of the image. If you look over here on the left, the image only went to about right here, and after that we duplicated it, and then it just used whatever data it found to duplicate what it thought was necessary, and as you can see, it's not that great. So it's a pretty good feature, but you need to be careful of the quality of your photo. With this exercise and all exercise and everything that we do in Photoshop, the main thing to determine how well your effect looks when you're editing is the quality of the photo. If it's a bad photo or there's too much in the photo, Photoshop can only go so far. So we need to make sure that we have good photos that we're practicing with, which is why I'm giving you a little bit of everything. So that is content aware for expanding photos. Let's use it for removing subjects from photos. So let's go to the next one, content aware 03, with this guy right here, and we're going to remove him from the photo. For these ones, before we crop or do anything, for the remainder of these exercise files, I want you to duplicate the background. We didn't do it on these because I just wanted to show you what the effect looks like, and we did do some destructive editing, but that's okay. Those are just a little example. For these ones, we're going to do non-destructive editing, so we're going to duplicate these backgrounds. So on this background, Command J to duplicate it so we can have a difference between the two. All right, so for these next few ones, we're going to use some new tools for these remaining files. So I'm going to show you a new tool here to select out the subject of this strange guy right here who I've never met before. Okay, so for that we are going to use the lasso tool right over here. If you don't see the lasso tool that looks like a rope, yours might say selection brush. We don't want that, but it's in the same group. If I click and hold, I'll see this one right here, lasso tool. That's the one you want. Click the lasso tool. It looks like a little lasso, like a little rope. So with the lasso tool, this allows you to free draw the area by clicking and holding your mouse. So this one, you don't have to trace it really closely on the line. We're actually going to trace outside the subject, kind of like this. So watch, I'm going to click and hold my mouse and draw like this. So it's okay to give myself a lot of space. I'm going around kind of like that, loosely around the subject, all the way around and connecting it back at the top like that. So this is the kind of shape you can draw. You don't have to trace on the line exactly. It's okay to give yourself some room because we need the background for the content aware to work. The content aware is going to determine what the background looks like to fill in the gaps. So when you're drawing it around, think of it like when you do those hand trace drawings, when you're drawing a hand turkey, kind of like how loosely you trace around that. It's kind of like that. It's not super precise. You're going around it with a big wide area. So now that we've done that and we have our selection, we're going to go up to Edit and then Fill. And for the fill, last time we did color, this time we're going to do content aware. Click on content aware and then click OK. And what it'll do is going to think 1, 2, 3, and there he goes. Perfect, just like that. I'm going to use Command D to deselect my area. And now that guy is gone. But he's on its own layer, so I can hide that layer to turn it on and off. And you can see it's pretty great. It's not perfect. There's a couple areas right here that it had a little bit of trouble with. But that's okay. If you showed this to someone for the first time, they probably would not be able to tell the difference at first glance. You know it's there. But it did a pretty good job of filling in the background. And again, I like to use this as a pretty simple example to where it looks pretty clean because there's not a lot in the background to get messy. But let's try again on our next one. Let's go to Content Aware 04. And we're going to do the same thing with this girl. First thing, duplicate that background. Command J over here so we can have a non-destructive edit to select her out. So for this one, you can use the lasso tool again, but let me tell you about a slightly easier tool, which is its cousin called the polygonal lasso tool. So if you're using the lasso tool, sometimes it can be a little frustrating. If you're trying to draw with your mouse and your wrist kind of bumps or you do something like that and you're, I messed it up, and you got to Command D to undo. I understand that could be a little frustrating. So if you're having trouble with the lasso tool, let's use its cousin. So click over here on lasso tool, and you want this one, the polygonal lasso tool or polygonal lasso tool, however you like to pronounce it, but the one right underneath it. Click that one. This one is more of a clicking and connect the dots option. So for this one, I could just click once and come over here and click again. And this allows you a little bit more freedom to go at a slower pace as well. So that way you don't have to worry about clicking and holding your mouse and doing it super precisely the whole time. So I can just single click my mouse and it does the connect the dots with this right here. So again, let's go loosely around her body, kind of like that. I'm not going super close, like right on the line right here. We're leaving some room so the content aware can determine what the background is and fill it in. Perfect. And then come all the way back and connect the dots like that. What might happen is if you're trying to connect the dots, which this does happen a lot as well, you're trying to connect the dots like this, and you can't find here, or you're trying to click around and you can't, or the piece gets away from you for something like that, all you have to do is double click and it will automatically close the gap from your first point to your most last point. So if you get stuck or the tool gets away from you in some way, just double click and it will close the gap like that. Or you can deselect and start over, because sometimes that does happen. But that's okay. It's a pretty easy fix. So again, nice loose drawing around her. And we're going to do that same thing. Go to Edit, Fill, Content Aware, and click OK. And we'll take her and remove her from the background. So again, you could tell the parts that it's simpler, it looks a little cleaner because this wall's pretty bare, so it's not that big of a deal. But down here where the bricks are, it got a little bit messy. Kind of blurred them a little bit. But again, if you showed this to your friend, this is the first time they're seeing it, you just showed them this picture, they probably would not be able to tell that anything happened to it. They might just think it looks a little weird right here, but they have no idea that it's been photoshopped. It just looks like a plain image. Let's try something slightly different on this one, which is the first one I showed you in the example. So let's select this guy out. Use either of the two lasso tools I just showed you, whichever one you're more comfortable with. You can use the lasso or the polygonal lasso. Pick either one, and let's select this dude out. whichever one you feel more comfortable with. If the lasso tool is too frustrating, use this polygonal one right here. Nice, rough, and then I could double click to close the gap right there. All right. So one thing I forgot, I need to Command J to duplicate it. Be careful if you Command J like I just did. I already selected him. If I hit Command J, it's going to duplicate this. It's going to duplicate my selection. So I got to be careful of that. I don't want to do that. I want to deselect. Nothing should be selected before I Command J. So you got to be careful, and I'll do it one more time. So that happens a lot as well, so be careful of that. Make sure you copy before you do anything else. You can't select and then copy, or else you'll get whatever the thing that just happened to me. Okay, perfect. So now he's on his own layer as well. So for this one, we're going to do something slightly different because this background is very complicated. So the content aware is going to have a bit of an issue. So let me show you what it looks like first. If I go to Edit, Fill, Content Aware, see, ta-da, it looks okay. There's a little bit of trouble right here. It took this branch. It took whatever's going on right here with this. It duplicated the tree to fill in the gap, and the sidewalk's all crooked and janky. So may not want that. So this one we're going to do slightly different since the background's a little bit more complicated. For this one, we're going to use one of Adobe's relatively new features that's only come out in the last couple years, which is their AI fill. So let's go to Edit, and we're going to go to Generative Fill right here. Go to this next one. This is pretty new, as I just mentioned. So it's going to ask you to generate with what? All we want to do is type in remove person and then hit return on your keyboard. It will take a second to think about it using all its generative AI knowledge as it determines what it looks like to remove the person from the photo. And let's see what it comes up with. And how about that? And that looks a lot cleaner. You could tell the sidewalk is not all messed up. It filled in the background nicely. The street looks good. It's a super clean selection. A couple things are slightly different, but you really can't tell the difference. If you looked at this, you had no idea that it was Photoshopped. Unlike the content aware fill, if you saw that one from before, that one was all kinds of janky. So the generative fill can have a much cleaner effect most of the time. So let's use the generative fill on these next two examples for 6 and 7. Use the same thing with the generative fill to remove the bicycle. Let's duplicate the background, Command J, and let's select our bicycle using either of the two lasso tools that you like. There we go. And again, let's see the difference between the two. If I do the content aware fill, it looks okay, but you can see how messed up it is right here. It blurred the door. It doesn't look that great. So I'm going to Command Z and try the other one. Let's do generative fill, and let's just do remove bicycle. And let's see what happens. Content aware fill was okay, but generative fill will be a little bit better. And there you go. You can see the generative fill is gone, but it did a much better job. These lines look super clean, which is pretty insane. Back in the day when we had to remove things from photos, it was so much more work. We didn't even have content aware fill. We had to use some other healing brushes, and it took forever. The fact that we were able to do that in just a couple of seconds is insane and mind-blowing. So consider yourself lucky that you get to learn Photoshop at this time. So on the next one, I want you to do the same thing. Number 7, do the same thing we just did number 6. Select this out and use the generative fill to remove the bicycle, making the background look as clean as possible. So do that, pause the video, and then join me at this next part for Content Aware 08 once you have removed the bicycle. Okay, for this next one, we are going to be removing the acne from this girl's skin, and we're going to use a new tool for it. So first thing, as always, is to duplicate that background with Command J. We're going to come over here, and we're going to help this girl out, clear up her skin a little bit. So for this one, instead of using the lasso tool, so we could do the same thing to select it out and then content aware fill or generative fill and type in remove acne, but that would take forever. So for this one, we're going to use a new tool. Come down here to this one that says spot healing brush. It looks like a band-aid right here. There's a little band-aid with this dotted line over here. That's the one you want, spot healing brush. If you don't know the name of it, just hover your mouse over it for a second and this little thing will pop up to explain it. So this one behaves like another brush. Anything that has brush in the title means it has the same shortcuts. You can use those bracket keys to change the size of the brush. So for this one, all we have to do is come over here and click once on a zit, and how about that? It's all gone. So I can click right here, anywhere she has these spots, click, and how about that? 1, 2, 3, it's all gone. Clear skin in 5 seconds. Take some of these little pink spots and just clear up a little bit. Let's do her a little bit of a favor. No need for proactive or any other skincare treatments like that. All you need is some Photoshop and content aware with the spot healing brush. So it's as simple as that. So if you have a photo now that has some spots on it that you don't want, now you know how to get rid of it. Similarly, it will work not just with acne, but with other things on clothing, like stains on clothing. Let's get rid of this guy who's a very messy eater. Command J, duplicate, and let's go back over here. Spot healing brush, zoom in, and let's brush away. So we can make a big brush like that and just click. It might look like that, so the other thing that you could do is just brush with it or go over it a couple of times. So I can click and hold on my spot healing brush to do that, to go over it, and that will also get rid of it. Just like that. Let's do the same thing on the next 2 files. On 10 and 11, let's clean up these people who are very messy eaters. First, Command J, and let's start brushing. Remember, you can go over it a couple of times. I can go over it like that, get rid of it. I can go over it again, I can go over here. So you can go over it a few times. It's okay to go over it more than once. You can do the same thing with the lasso tool and the other selection tools. It's okay to just brush over it a few times until it's all gone. No more coffee stain for this person. And then lastly, one more. This one who is no longer allowed to go in and out and get ketchup for their fries because they just can't have nice things, can they? Let's brush this out. There we go. Looking good. So this will be much easier, as you can imagine, than using the lasso tool to select it. And again, you can go over it a couple of times to help clean it up. Here we go. Ta-da! So for the remaining exercise files, I want you to practice removing these subjects from the background using all of the various tools that we just practiced. Practice with each one. The spot healing brush, the lasso tool, the content aware, and the generative AI to get rid of these subjects. For this one, I want you to get rid of this guy right here, person standing on the mountain. For the next one, I want you to keep the person in the middle, but get rid of the sides. So get rid of the person on the left and get rid of the person on the right, and just keep the one in the middle, doing your best to make it look clean. And again, you can use any of the features that I just showed you, the spot healing, the generative AI, the lasso tool. Use everything to just practice and see what they look like. For this one, get rid of these people in the background. Leave the soccer ball, leave that where it is, but get rid of all these blurry, out of focus people in the background. We want to get rid of them, making it look like the soccer ball is all by itself. In this one, I want you to get rid of these guys in the background right here. Leave these 2 people in the front, but get rid of them so it looks like these 2 people are all by themselves. And then in this last example, I want you to get rid of this guy, this strange fella right here. Doesn't belong in the photo. Leave the love sign, that looks cool, but he doesn't need to be there, so get rid of him. Okay? So, as always, have fun practicing. Take screenshots of everything that you've edited today. Once you're all done, once you've practiced on every single file that I've given you, take a screenshot of each one and attach them to today's content aware assignment. Have fun and let me know if you have any questions.